Okay, so this is my gnarly tree. This is a very large piece. It'll be a centerpiece for any table. This is made from paper towel tubes and masking tape, and then the tin foil, and of course craft wire for these thinner branches. The craft wire, I add hot glue and then wrap it with the tin foil, and that produces a nice sturdy piece. Now it's a cool looking tree. There's these big roots down here. It's also very sturdy. Hi folks, so this is the tinfoil tree terrain that I'm making for those tables in January. I'm gonna have a couple of wilderness tables, and I really wanted some large, impressive trees. Actually, I may turn these into tropical trees by adding some vines later. But right now, what I'm doing is base coating all of the tinfoil with black paint. This is sort of my primer before I actually begin painting the tree. Now, during this process, if I find any weakness in the branches, I repair it with hot glue. And I haven't added any of the vegetation pieces for these thinner branches yet, right? Just base coating the tree. And I'm using brush. I ran out of black spray paint. I usually spray paint these kinds of pieces. The spray paint really sticks well to the tinfoil, right? But that's okay. I mean, I'm using acrylic paint, and this is black, just giving it a nice coat of black. Okay, so what I'm doing now is adorning the base for the tree a little bit, and I'm using this yellow foam. I have lots of this stuff, and I use this to make rock work. Here's an example of some rock terrain that I made with that foam, and I'm just placing some random bits on the base of the tree, and I'm gonna add one more little clump just to seal up some of the holes. Have to load my glue gun here, and well, just seal up some of the larger holes in the base, and of course it'll give the base an interesting look. I'm going to add a little bit more clumps here. And of course this has to be painted. And it will be painted, and that's going to simulate some rock. Okay, so that's the stage I'm in now. And there's my tree. And then, of course, this is going to be covered with texture paste. I make a homemade texture paste, and it's gonna cover the entire base. I did do some texturing with hot glue, and this will resemble like little roots and things coming out of the tree. And then I covered it with that texture paste, and then paint everything to resemble earth. Add some vegetation to the bottom. And of course, I'll show you guys how I make the canopy. I use the same material that I use for my rocks, except they are stained with green paint. And I just make all of the little vegetation clumps on the branches and then cover it in flock. And I'll show you how I do that. So the next stage, after I coated the tree in black, and while it was still wet, I used a Krylon red oxide brown and spray painted the entire piece. Spray paint is really the best kind of thing for these projects, for these tinfoil trees, because it really coats everything. So there's a little bit of that black still showing, and then this sort of reddish brown. So I'm going to let this dry. I also spray painted the base. I'm going to let this dry before I actually begin the painting process on the tree. Okay, so here is a view of that tree. It is drying, and again, I love the effect that tinfoil provides, you know, when making this kind of terrain. I will be varnishing this once it's done. I add a little bit of varnish and then some Mod Podge puzzle protectant. This hardens the tinfoil and protects the paint, so it makes the piece more durable. But you can see all that cragginess, and I really love tinfoil for that. I do a lot of work with tinfoil. I sculpt with it. I actually make figures with it. But I do it in my terrain pieces. I use it for making rock work, and I use it for making trees. So once this dries, I can begin painting again, doing all the dry brush to make sure that all of these wrinkles, all of this cragginess is really pops out. And of course, I also have giant mushrooms. Yes, that's the great thing about fantasy. I'm going to be making a few of these pieces and make them different shapes and sizes and have like a giant, you know, mushroom forest in the table. Maybe an area that has been mutated by magic or something. So, no limit to the imagination and to the kinds of things you can do for tabletop gaming. So there it is, folks. There is the tree project. This is one of 3 trees that I am making. Have a good day, folks.